Welcome to the Catholic Leadership Network podcast, helping ministry leaders succeed from the beginning, with your co-hosts, Christy Cabanis and Sarah Jarzembowski. By now, we've only been doing it for a year. Oh my goodness. All right, welcome everybody to the Catholic Leadership Network podcast. We are here to support ministry leaders from the very beginning. We talk about all the things no one told you about working in the church. We hope you find a grounded place to meet colleagues and get encouragement. We are glad you're here. It is also important to note we do not need to be perfect in the work we do.
Amen.
Every time I mess up at the office, that's what I say. I'm here to remind you parents and you families that you don't have to be perfect to be a Catholic and in our church.
Good deal. Truth.
We are here with the wonderful Jessica Zeiser. She's the VP of Benefits and Outsourcing for a private held insurance administrator. She is responsible for leading new business sales, client management, and client implementation with a market focus serving the employer supplemental health space. Jessica has spent more than 20 years in sales and consulting capacity for clients ranging in size from 1 million in revenue to those in Fortune 100 categories. Oh my gosh, who am I on with, Christine? Who did you set us up with?
She's super fancy.
Good time.
Jessica recently completed her executive MBA at the Robert H. Smith School of Business and was honored to represent the Smith program as one of Poets and Quaint's best and brightest EMBAs for 2021. You're going to have to explain that one to us. That sounds awesome. She's very humbled to receive the Marty J. Sullivan Award from her faculty and cohort for her service and positive contributions for learning of others. And Jessica has a passion for serving others and has experience as Director of Philanthropy and Strategic Partnerships that created opportunities to serve her local community while strengthening her client relationships. Jessica enjoys traveling with her husband, and they spend as much time as they can with their family in Germany and exploring Europe. Jessica, wow. I'm so happy to meet you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy that you're here. And full disclosure, Christy and Jessica are siblings. So
when did that start?
Christy has bragged about you for as long as I've known Christy. It's true. She brags about her sisters. And when we were talking about celebrating success and like, how can we do that? Thinking outside the box, not really paying attention to numbers. Like that tells one side of the story, but like, I want to get away from that, but how do we celebrate the successes in our parishes and with our leaders and with our parishioners and all of that? Christy just kept bringing you up. She's like, I know, but my sister, I'm like, okay, well, let's get her in here. So here we are. Welcome, Jessica. We're so glad that you joined us at the Catholic Leadership Network podcast.
Awesome. Woo. Thanks for having me.
I need a drink.
All right. So Sarah's right. You guys, Jessica is my sister. So I'll try to go easy on her and not be all, big sister meanie for the morning. But so I'll start with a softball, Jessica. Sarah's right. When we were talking about some of the aspects of this podcast that we wanted to bring into this season, we were talking about how do you see the whole picture and how do you, how can you, I don't know, Jessica, maybe you can help me with words here. What do we mean when we even just say celebrating success? Can you give us a framework for that?
Sure. So, at the very basic part of it, to me, it's such a core part of everything that we do, but I think it's really just making sure that you take time to reflect on your efforts and enjoy a moment of pride or a sense of camaraderie with your friends, your colleagues, and just really recognizing what your accomplishments are from the day, the time, whatever we're doing to that's worthy of celebrating. So it's just really, I think it's more about just reflecting on your efforts is the starting point of celebrating success.
Nice. So how would we do that if we were going to get started?
Well, so I think there's a lot of different ways you can do it. I think some of the things that are super important is that you have to decide right where you want to start with your goals. So like one of the first things to say to yourself is like, what difference do you want to make? What are you trying to achieve each day? You need to be able to document that and put benchmarks in place so you have a path to get there. You know, and it doesn't actually matter, you know, to Sarah's point, it doesn't have to just be numbers. It could be something related to like, I want to reach out to 5 new parishioners this week and every week from here on out. And at the end of that week, you can celebrate like, hey, I met 5 cool people. Here's what we did. Here's what we talked about. Here's some stories that you can share and you can celebrate that. It could be for me selling another $1 million of revenue, or something as big as we want to establish our organization as the place where people want to go to work. No, like whatever you do, I think what you have to do is start with a goal. And then it could be a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal, you know, that you want to go after, or it could be something simple that you can accomplish daily or weekly. And when you start there, I think that's what we want to say is what are the steps and what are the paths to getting there. And if you have trouble with that, I would just recommend the book Atomic Habits from James Clear.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great, great book, and it's really more designed about creating good, healthy habits. But the way that the way that he outlines the path to get to that to me is what it is those are the milestones you want to start to celebrate to create the momentum and the positive energy and things like that.
What was the name of that author?
James Clear.
Like Clear.
Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah,
I'm writing that
He,
down.
he was on the Brene Brown show.
Oh, you did it.
It's so funny, Sarah. I was going to bring up Renee, and then I was like, Christy will interject that like 3 times in this conversation, so I can bring in some other names that you guys might not be familiar
Okay,
with.
so it's so funny. Everybody listening up, last week we were talking with Tracy Lamont, and we made it through the entire recording. And as soon as I hit stop, Christy chimes in. Okay, now that we're not recording anymore, I need to tell you about this Brene Brown thing. So she made it through the recording, but she didn't make it through our whole conversation.
Hey, that's worth celebrating. Congrats, Christy. Right? Like,
See, we celebrate.
Yeah, so that's an excellent segue, Jessica. How can we define success? I hope Sarah can bring it back together. For those of you that are just listening to our podcast, she just went dead silent with pure laughter.
I did. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Jessica. So yeah, let's bring it back. How would we define that success? Like, so you're saying create the goals and give yourself some benchmarks, but are there place marks? Like, do I say like in a week I celebrate, in 5? How do I do that?
Yeah, that's the cool part. You don't have to, I don't think, make framework that strict about it, but I'll tell you a quick story. So one of the things that I do when I have any kind of conversations with senior level leaders is I like to ask them, how do you celebrate success? And it's hilarious because people get so discombobulated by that question. And there's a really, I think it's a great thing when people go like happy hour, what exactly are we talking about here? So I think that there's 2 different ways you can answer that question. One time I heard from someone who said, I really don't know how to answer that. I think that success comes with growth. I do all the sales for our organization though, and I don't like to celebrate myself. So I guess I don't really celebrate success. And I was like, whoo, okay, that's an answer. And then I had another person who answered that, oh my gosh, so many awesome ways. Here's a few examples just from this last month. This is what we did during our annual retreat. One of the pieces that was so important is we have clients that we service and we help, we bring them in so that all of our team knows the contributions that they made and they can hear those stories. And I was like, that's an amazing answer, right? So I think there's a lot of different ways you can answer it. For me, it's more about recognizing that it's what we're giving in our effort, but also what is everybody else giving in their effort. And then there's a couple of different ways I think that you can do that. So whatever your milestones are, that's why I think Atomic Habits is awesome. It's kind of like, if you want to start doing 10 push-ups every morning, but you really don't want to do 10 push-ups every morning, but you do know you're going to brush your teeth in the morning, start with that. Every morning when I get up and I brush my teeth, I'm going to brush my teeth and then I'm going to put my sneakers next to my toothbrush, right? And you like figure out what these little milestones are to be able to get towards doing your push-ups in the morning. And so it's like, what are things that are something you can actually track, something that you can work towards, and something that you can mark off as you're getting there. And I think it's really important to quantify that, as much as we don't want to talk about numbers as much. But to me, like if we're trying to, put a fundraiser together and we want to put something out in front of everybody visually so they see it, they see the milestones that we're going to get. So we put a big, huge cup out there. We're going to fill that up. We want it to be overflowing, and then we're going to have hit our goal when it's overflowing. But along the way, you hit those hashtags so that we have something to celebrate. We can get that energy going from everybody. So I think those things you just have to decide for yourself, like, hey, once you have that specific goal written down, what are some specific milestones we can do to get there? And a way to do that at work that we do right now is I do a lot of one-on-ones with my team, and we do PDMs, so performance development meetings monthly. And every month we take a reflection of what was the last month and what did it look like. And then we look at what's coming up this upcoming month, and we really just write it out. And it's a collaborative effort. It's not just me dictating, here's what we need to get done this month. It's like, hey, this is what we have to look at. And a big part of that is celebrating success in there. And it's really funny because some people, we just had a meeting and we were celebrating one of our colleagues about all the amazing things that she's doing for us. And she goes, I'm just doing my job. And we're like, yeah, but you did this and you did this and you did this. And so we celebrated for her the milestone she's not even realizing because it's becoming so second nature. And I have a feeling that when you're having a job that you're so passionate about, like working with the Catholic Church, it's really easy to get so caught up in all that passion. You don't find a way to define, like, this is just my job versus these are the pieces that are really worth celebrating.
Yeah. What's the extra and above?
Mhm.
Yeah. I think the other thing too, that I'm making a connection here with what James Clear has said, is that when you want to do the 10 push-ups a day, you want to teach yourself to become the kind of person that does push-ups every day. So you could start with just like one push-up, but you're doing that one push-up every single day. So you become that type of person. But to your point, Jessica, that you just said, like when you're having those meetings with your team, I do 100% agree that I think people don't notice the change even in themselves. So you've got to quantify that for them and put it down on actual paper, like either, well, I mean, it could be in your computer notes or whatever, but like to keep track of those things, because the change happens so gradually that we don't even see it actually happening in us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why I love celebrating, because it builds confidence, it increases motivation, you get really fun team building opportunities out of it. You know, you have that positive energy, momentum to keep going, and it's refreshing and it helps you rejuvenate to get back, you know, into the next thing. So I think it's super important to acknowledge it and track it, because it has so many great benefits. It's kind of like high-fiving. Like, that's one of my favorite ways to celebrate success for free. High five. And it's a literal change in people whenever, and you guys might do this already, but we a friend of mine and I did, it was our HR manager at the time, actually, we had a contest to see how many high fives we could get in the day with our colleagues. And then we had to talk about the reaction later. And we always say that Moscow mules, 1 or 2 Moscow mules, and we're saving the world. So we were like sat with our mules and we're like, dude, I high-fived, I'm not going to call out any names here, but, you know, and we were like, and that person is normally super grumpy, and they just burst out laughing, you know, because it literally drives endorphins, and it's just like so funny, but it's a really fun way to be like, oh my gosh. And real quick story, I actually just had this happen yesterday. I was sitting with our finance manager. We have had this major problem. We've been going round and round and round, and all of a sudden we got everything to balance. And I'm like kneeling at her desk, and I went, dude. And she was like, yeah. And high-fived, and it was like super awesome. But I was like, to me, that's also celebrating. It doesn't have to be a big party, but that was a good celebration.
Well, and something that you've kind of alluded to and mentioned a little bit in here is the sharing of the stories, because sometimes we don't always see our own accomplishments. So sharing the story is kind of a big deal. You know, I'm not sure if your colleague realized what an accomplishment that was yesterday until you high-fived, you know. So I think, you know, as Catholics, we are storytellers. Our faith is shared through stories. And so I think that that's part of it too, is creating opportunities for sharing of stories, to share other people's accomplishments, you know, as well as our own. Like, I want to high-five you through the screen here. Like, well done. Like, balancing balance sheets, like that is just beyond my brain, you know.
Yeah.
I'm a theater major, it's beyond me, you know.
Yeah, and I think, Sarah, you're going for a great point though there too. It's like when you're trying to make change, or if you're trying to work towards something, I think you need that goal. You need to be able to visualize it, but you also have to help other people understand how they're contributing to that goal. And often it gets lost, you know, in the messaging there. And that's, as leaders, I think it's our job to make sure we don't lose sight of that goal, we're constantly sending that message. And then we're also recognizing what all those pieces are. So people really feel such a huge part of that goal as we get there. And I don't see these things as like an end state. I hit my, 5 parishioners and I don't need to call anybody else. You might have the energy from calling them to call 5 more, right? But you still want to celebrate that minute that you had there, and you want to understand, like, what are we really doing with those calls and what are we trying to achieve, and then bring it back to that. And, I think all of that together is really important.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and energy it's kinetic. Like energy breeds energy, in a lot of people. I do that until I hit the wall and then I'm done. Like I go headlong into the wall, but I think you're right. One action connects to another action. There's a great video audio out there of an admiral speaking at a graduation, talking about making your bed in the morning. Like if you can make your bed in the morning, that's one accomplishment. And if you do nothing else, you have accomplished something, right? And I think about that a lot because, when I do make the bed in the morning, I really do feel like I've accomplished something, and then I can go on to the next thing. Sometimes my husband makes the bed, and God bless him, I'm so glad that he does. And then I'm like, okay, I need to find that other thing that I need to accomplish in the morning to be able to then have that kinetic energy to kind of move forward. And making the bed is one of them. I forget the name of the admiral, but it's a really great story. Again, a story of accomplishment and, a way to start our day. I love putting your shoes next in your bathroom by your toothbrush, one push up a day. I think we think we need to be perfect right off the bat. We need to be at the goal right off the bat, and we don't. We need to build up to the goal,
right? Because
we don't want to hit the goal and then not be able to sustain and maintain.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that. I'm just talking.
No, I think that's a really great point, Sarah, because I think the other part of that is realizing that any accomplishment and achievement is a journey. We don't jump over the ladder to get to the top of the building, right? We need to take those steps one at a time. And the higher the building or your goal is, the more steps that it's going to take. So, you need strength and stamina to be able to do that. And the smaller celebrations along the way help you to keep on track and stay focused on what those goals are. And then when the goals get bigger and bigger, because you've been successful by applying this in a small way each time, I think that you will find that you have the energy and ability, and you're able to, because you practiced reflection to say, oh, I can look back at that and say, look how far I've come. And so now I have confidence that I can go further. Yes, Jessica, you're the expert.
No, I just love it. So I wouldn't call myself an expert. I just feel so many benefits from it. So I totally agree with what you're saying. And I also love that Admiral speech, Sarah. So that's a great call out. Hopefully we can find that and share it with the listener. But I make my bed every day as a result of that. So, but I think that's great. I think that's what we want to do. And you have to think about also fun ways to celebrate that keeps it fresh and fun, right? So one of the things I was thinking about when we were talking about this, Christy, was the what do I see and where am I seeing other friends and people like celebrating success, and with it's basically no cost too. There's just fun ways, and we've created a few different like events committees and things like that at our office, that it's just people in their free time, they can just get together. It's created a lot of camaraderie. It's they've come up with some really fun ideas. We do a ton of potluck lunches, so everybody like is coming and contributing. But that time that they get together, people are sort of learning about what other people in our organization do. They're just making new friends and everything. And so it's really fun to do that. They've done wellness walks, which seem to be a great way to just break out of the day. Like, hey, let's celebrate that this half of the day is done and we're on our way to the second half, So it's, when the weather's nice here in Cleveland, it's awesome to walk out there now that it's fall. And another one that I thought was a really cool idea. So I'm not a morning person. So you guys you're getting the best side of me, every energy, all the energy I have right now. But I went over to their side. Our customer call center is a pretty big call center in our building. And I was like, are they playing music? What's happening? So I go over there and they have karaoke up on their stats board, the lyrics rolling, and they're all dancing and singing. And I was just standing there because I needed to talk to somebody, but I was like, And then before I knew it, I'm like, dude, and I had like so much energy in the morning, and it was like, I left there like, thanks guys, like high fives everywhere. It was like really fun. So like different little things you can do that you don't have to spend any money, but you can find really fun ways to celebrate with the team, you know, and just the stuff that we're working on every day. It doesn't have to cost a lot. It's just creating that energy.
I mean, you just mentioned one from your other, you know, walking into another department. What's the favorite one celebration that you've helped to create? What was your favorite celebration?
Oh gosh, there's like so many different ones. I think one of the coolest ones, we had a culture challenge at one of the companies I was working for, and one of the coolest ones that we got introduced to, and I can't take credit for this, I learned it somewhere and I wish I could quote it, but I don't, but it's called red beads, blue beads. Are you guys familiar with this?
No.
I've heard of it, but I haven't applied it.
Yeah, so basically what it means is that whenever you, everybody gets an empty jar on their desk. So it works really well when you're working in an area where everybody can see stuff. And red beads mean that you've been able to identify a challenge. So good job, you've identified a challenge. But a blue bead means that you created a resolution, or you found a way to get past the challenge that was out there, and you give them to each other. And so we had to, when we were sitting in a meeting or we were talking, be like, red bead, that's a red bead. Do you have a solution to that? I'm happy to give you some blue beads if you know. And it was really funny because it just became part of our conversation, but it became a little bit of a celebration. The more blue beads we had in our jars, and we would walk around and get really excited about the fact that we were just tackling big stuff. And it started with little tiny things of just like, well, my coffee is just not that hot, right? Oh, we have a microwave, so blue bead, right? So it could just start with something as funny as that, but then we really started to take it to heart, and it changed a lot of the way we were trying to tackle the challenges we were dealing with. We were just in a tough spot, which is fair. I'm not blaming anybody for that, but it was just, we needed something to like trigger that change. And to me, that was something where we could celebrate as we were seeing that progress of our blue beads growing. So I think that's probably a fun one of my favorites to talk about.
Really cool.
I love that, celebrating during the progress.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a visual. So I'm a visual person. So being able to see that, I'm also, when it comes to games, I'm really competitive.
Nice.
Like when I suck at a game, I'm a board flipper. So like I get really competitive. Oh, I was
Right.
So
we should go to more like the self-care for you, Sarah.
Yeah, like, you know.
Tell us some of those, Jessica.
What's that? Oh, same.
Yeah, tell us some of those.
Some of the O's. Well, there are some of the, well, you know, actually, you know who does has some great examples of how to celebrate success without having to spend any money or be competitive. Tony Robbins. I was Googling it actually because I love looking up new ways, and he was just talking about like spending time with the people that you love, making time for self-care. That's a really important one. You know, you talked about gratitude earlier, Sarah. So just showing people that you appreciate them. I think he told a story about getting creative with like we see this if you're watching football these days, not the Steelers, but when people get in the end zone, they're doing dancing and things like that. I'm sorry, I'm a huge Steelers fan, so I have to just be sad for a minute because we're not having that great of a start. But so they start dancing in the end zone, and those guys have figured out really fun ways to celebrate success. And some of them are with all of their guys. Some of them, they have their own little kooky dance or whatever. But those are, I think, some of the creative things he was talking about. Pet a dog. I don't think that's Tony. I think that's me. But they, you know, I think that there's a lot of fun ways. And for me personally, like having a cup of coffee, sitting on the porch and just like finding that time to be thankful for what's going on in my life, or, you know, things that I was able to accomplish in the week and everything. And my other thing that I do that is a great non-competitive thing is I take naps. The first German word I learned was Nickerchen, which is nap in German. So I can tell my in-laws that this is what I need right now. But yeah, I think naps are a great way to be thankful for all of the energy and effort that you put out there and taking care of yourself.
I am in love with that one. I will find all sorts of reasons to take a nap now.
See, yeah, just incorporate in your day-to-day. And then at the end of your nap, make sure you're celebrating like what it was for.
Celebrating what it was for. I think this is great. I just love the ideas. And somewhere in all of this, you mentioned, you know, I think you mentioned a potluck and having lunch together with your staff. I think that can't be overstated. You
Mhm.
know, having lunch or having a meal with your staff on a somewhat regular basis, not only does it build camaraderie, but you kind of start to build and to learn about the people and what makes them tick and how to communicate better with that person. You know, I did have the opportunity to have lunch with staff yesterday and I didn't take it. And I'm kind of feeling like there was a lot to do yesterday, and I felt that over top of the camaraderie, you know. So like, how do we kind of bust through that, you know, like the tasks of the day and getting the stuff done? And you know, last week we were talking about how fast it like life goes, how fast work goes, and it's like a steam train that is just, this locomotive is just going and going and you can't stop it. And that's the way I felt yesterday. So do you have any thoughts about how to kind of slow down and to kind of break that habit of just go, 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 and take time for that presence with your fellow staff members?
I think you've got to schedule it and make it a priority. So honestly, it's one of those things where it's, you know, there's so many meetings where, and I hate this, but when we start to go crazy or run wild, or our day is taking a hold of us and we're late to every single meeting, it's disrespectful to yourself and it's disrespectful to the team members. So it's something where you say, like, this is a real priority to me. I really need this quality time with our team. And you know what? I also need the energy boost. So one of the things that we did from an accountability perspective is we set up a weekly meeting with our team and everyone's required to share a win of the week. And some people are like struggle bus to be like, what the hell is my win? Just, do you know my win is? Yes, you have, da, 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 da. You know, and I'll help them out. And now people are really excited. And the fun thing that came from that is we had the obligation to come prepared. So we committed to that time that we were going to have for each other. We shared something that was great to celebrate for the week. And now people are actually just sharing wins for each other. That story I told you earlier, where we were like, she said she didn't have that many wins this week, but let me tell you, she did this, this, and this, and we rattled them off for her. And she was like, oh, I thought I was just doing my job. But those were the things to say, like, we're eternally grateful for the energy and effort you put in there. So you start to recognize it for, you know, your colleagues as well. I think so. Scheduling it, making time, and making it a priority, I think is especially for me, if it's not on my schedule, I'm going to miss it or I'm going to forget. So it's like, I have to just make sure I'm making that time. And it might take some of the glamour and fun and what it seems like, you know, a free for all there with the way I'm talking about things, like, oh, yada, yada, but it's purposeful, you know, so you have to make sure you're making time for it.
Yeah.
That's really, I think that's such a great point, Jessica, like of bringing it in, like this is also a task that you need to do and giving it that sort of priority. And because it's beneficial on so many levels to connect with everybody. And I think especially for the ministers or minister that's out there listening right now, that to recognize that when you're trying to build your ministry, you are building relationships. And so it's things like this that help you make those connections with folks. It helps them feel seen and known and belong, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, one of the things when I just went to graduate school, and before I went, I had to fill in this whole essay about, you know, if you could talk to yourself 20 years ago, what would you say? And really as in reflection, it was, you know, focus and put effort into all that you do. Like, recognize that we're not just checking a box. That's how I felt about undergrad. I just wanted to get a job. I wanted to get a paycheck and everything like that. But I missed such a cool opportunity to really get engaged in the learning and you know, activities at school. And so I think it's super important that we need to know what's really important to us. We know that going through the motions can be extremely exhausting, but going towards something is so much more exciting. And then celebrating that success along the way keeps that positive energy and momentum going. And then you go from goal to goal to goal. And then that's really what your journey is. So yeah, well said, Christy. I think that that's exactly what we're trying to do. We want to make sure that we're making the most of everything. And, you know, so yeah, super excited about it. And I think that those are some key pieces to remember in our day-to-day.
Well, and you just answered the last question I was going to ask about what you wish you knew when you first started out. I think that that's, you know what's important and put effort into everything that you do. You know, one of the things that's kind of grated on me in the last year or so is this idea of quiet quitting, you know, and just checking off the boxes. I don't think that helps anybody out. I don't think that helps ourselves out personally. It doesn't help out the team, and it doesn't help out the mission of the organization that you're in. And if you took that job, then you have some feeling towards that mission. And most likely it was a positive feeling when you started. If it's no longer a positive feeling and that mission is no longer your mission, get out.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, but this whole quiet quitting, it just driving me nuts, you know, and just checking off the boxes.
Yeah, but
put
Sarah,
effort.
just one point on that. Have the strength to talk to your colleagues that are quiet quitting. Like, I think it's one of the things we're sort of trying to hope they'll figure out on their own, but they're quiet quitting because they've lost their way, right? And so however that has to come back, it could be a really tough conversation where you're like, you are pulling so hard on my energy and I can feel this isn't right for you. What's going on? Can we get you over the hump and back in the journey with us? Or is it time to step away? And I think we have to have those conversations. I think it's a little difficult to, you know, put somebody on the spot that way, but sometimes it's the best thing you could possibly do for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And yourself, right? You just mentioned you're pulling energy from me. Right. In this quiet quit.
But
yeah.
No,
but I think people don't realize how it affects other people in such a negative way. And I think even for us, it's that slow drip of erosion of our own energy and well-being that we really do need to pay attention to. And we've come to a place, I think, in our world where we don't talk things through. We don't want to point out to people, you know, some of the negativity. But I think that those kinds of conversations can be life-giving if we do it from a place of respect and use respectful language. I think that language is very key in what we do, because we don't want to be divisive and just send people packing. We want to do it in a way that also highlights the positive of what they bring. You know, and that we are missing that. So there's so much we could talk about here, but we've kind of hit our time. And this is just wonderful. I'm so glad that you joined us, Jessica. I think it's really important for us to hear somebody, a voice from outside of the church world. And thank you so much for bringing this up. I think there's so many ideas that I wrote down. I'm going to drop a couple of emails out to some of my colleagues to, you know, maybe go out to lunch or out for coffee and let's plan it, you know, and seeing if we can plan something, because I've been thinking about it and I got all these good intentions in my mind, but they don't always get out of my mind and into action. And I think today I'm gonna take some of that action. So thank you for helping me get to that space. And thank you for joining us today. This has been really helpful and positive. And I'm happy to meet one of Christy's siblings. So glad that you were able to join us.
Thank you for what you both do. It's so important for all of us in the church and outside. So thank you so much for what you're doing. And this is super exciting to be a part of it. It is a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Jess.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We'll be back again next week. And we'll continue to talk about all those things that nobody told you in Catholic leadership. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day.
Peace.